Exactly. We're live. Hello, Daniel. How are you?
Hello. Hello, my friend. I am very good. It's
It's
the
it's
evening here, so I'm winding down, but
uh-huh.
it's a good winding down. Feel very good.
We'll call this podcast episode "Mellow Moods" with Daniel Severin Petersen.
Your favorite radio station with Daniel Severin here at 8 p.m.
That's right. That's it. Um,
Mm,
I'm excited to talk to you today because you were my first guest on the podcast when I decided to do a podcast with guests, and now 3 years later, here we are
mhm,
recording again. The first time we recorded, we were both in San Francisco. You were in my apartment. You were
mhm,
visiting. We were working on a project, and then a year later or so, everything kind of fell apart, and then the pandemic broke out. And I want to explore where we are today and
mhm,
what is going on in your world. You are a student
mhm.
now of physical therapy, and
Yes,
yeah, how is that going?
that is yeah. So, oh, that is a big that was a big leap back to the student seat. It's going really well. Um, there's multiple things that I had to get adjusted to in the beginning, which was one, the seat and the perspective of the student. Also, reading and understanding theory, and then applying it to practice from different perspectives, and that takes some. I call it the meat and potatoes of studying,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
it's not the re-delivery of things you already know to other people. It's for you to consume and then rephrase with your own words and experience. So
Hmm.
that's been really interesting, and taking up a lot of the a lot of time, I must say.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's a full-time job to be a
Hmm.
student,
Hmm.
and especially in the field that you're in, that requires a lot of not only theory on various levels when it comes to the body, but also being able to have a practical expression of that. And then on top of that, you're also still coaching a little bit and
Hmm.
working as a trainer.
Yes.
And then you've also bought a home, which means that now you're a homeowner and you have to
Yeah.
take care of property.
Yes.
So yeah, you have a
Yeah.
very full life. I see that. And something I was thinking about yesterday, kind of leading up to today, was May of 2015 when you showed up in San Francisco
Hmm.
and you did your first seminar with me. And just kind of looking back at who you were then,
Hmm.
can you remember that Daniel? Does that Daniel live inside of you somewhere today?
Whew. Yeah, I think he does for sure. He definitely lives inside me. I think, for me that was a big adventure, and if I have to compare it to now, that was probably just opening the doors and letting every opportunity inside and experimenting and letting myself be in a very different way that I was used to, in terms of having to earn money and education and all the stories that are being told to you from childhood. So this was kind of me, uh, being on an adventure. I think is the word. So that is still in me. I would say right now, that part is, unfolding in a different way, with a lot of experience in the back burner. Yeah. So he
Hmm.
is there for sure.
Yeah, that was a Daniel who was out just trying to find his place in the world. But you were
Hmm.
very curious about movement. You were very curious about training.
Hmm.
You're very eager to learn and develop, and you invested a lot of time, a lot of
Hmm.
money, a lot of effort into that. And somehow you arrived at a conclusion that you wanted to pursue becoming a physical therapist or a physiotherapist.
Hmm.
Um, what brought you to that realization? What was the moment where you're like, "Oh yeah, this is what I want to do. I'm going to go to school." How did you get to
Mm.
that conclusion?
Oh, that is a great question. I think a lot of things brought me to that conclusion. Many things that clashed at once. At the moment where I left San Francisco the last time was before the pandemic, where I visited you with Lucas.
Mhm.
And as I came home, the routine was to teach seminars and coach Lucas on a regular basis. And then the pandemic hit, and then it was a lot of, I would say in the beginning it was like panic and, should I say, fear outward, just doing something in terms of creation and having some sort of plan, which I didn't.
Mhm.
so so the main part back then was really my first inclination was to seek something that had some theory in terms of, I was curious about anatomy and the physiology, and something that you had introduced me to as well. These subjects was um, the way we move and the way motion is created and how to coach it to all kinds of people, all stages of progression. And I think I wanted to tie it on something. And so my initial idea was to get this education as a sort of uh, a grip, a firm uh, milestone, something to lean on, or whatever you want to call it. Um, but then later on, upon starting the education, I realized that let me say this, I realized that there was a lot of things that I thought I knew something about or a little bit about that I didn't really know the full scale of, or maybe even, let's say, 50% of it. And then there was a lot of stuff that I didn't know about.
Mhm.
Um, and those lessons led me to insights that were similar to the ones I already had and had gained through you and through working with people over the years. And some of them were also new in terms of it was a different angle. It was simply a different angle. So, for example, uh, movement control and control around the spine when you lift something or jump and land was something we talked about on the seminars together. And we taught it through the gymnastic lens in the beginning with the hollow body and rocking back and forth in hollow rock. And another perspective I learned was that there's there's a lot of different methodologies that attack exactly lumbar stability. And I know it's a very geeked out subject, but this is the example that just popped up in my head right now, which was the McKenzie method, for example, who was like you press yourself up into different positions and you practice the same shapes with the body, you just do it differently and you have a different focus, and it's for a different target audience, so to say. So the lessons are kind of the same. They hold the same essence, but they're applied differently in different contexts, and that's extremely exciting.
Mhm.
And yeah, this is a very sorry. This is a long-winded response to your question, but I wanted to return to this, which was that these lessons, they opened my eyes to not only other ways to see these same learnings or insights, but also what they could lead to. I could suddenly be more than, or I could be something else than a personal trainer, for example. I could work with patients that have severe neurological problems, or patients in a hospital, or amputees, or yeah, a lot of different doors started to open, and I think that's really what I have my eyes on at the moment. That's really interesting.
That is very
Mm.
interesting. So, selfishly, something that comes up for me, I was just thinking about me at that time being your mentor and you the mentee, or me the teacher and you the student. And one of the dreams I think of every mentor, or something at least a mentor knows to some degree, is that if the mentor does a good job, the mentee will surpass the mentor. The student will surpass the teacher. And I want to believe that you have surpassed me when it comes to the understanding of movement and physical development. And I'm curious, because I think this is powerful, is to know where did I steer you right, and where did I potentially steer you wrong?
Well, first of all, that's a huge compliment. I don't know if I can live up to that description, but but I try though.
Just take it, take it,
I'll take
run
it.
with it.
I'll take it. Yeah. Well, where did you steer me right? Yeah, I think you steered me right in a lot of ways. I think one was to show me a specific set of doors and then letting me open the doors instead of opening them for me. So even though you were facilitating process sometimes, I think you did it in a way where the game was very open. The material and the frame was very firm, but the way it was practiced was very open. So I kind of compare. I think I can compare it to a scenario from being a student here. We were taught a specific movement and a way to do this movement, and it was very fixed and it was very non-individual. It was very all size fits all size one size fits all. That's what it's called. Sorry.
Hmm. No, that's good.
Yeah. Um, and I think what you did, even the first day, I remember I had Lisa Warren and Courtney Walker in the seminar. And for those of you who are listening, these are some of the most incredible athletes I've ever seen. They could like do 10 jumping pistol squats on one leg and a lot of handstand push-ups, and yeah, we're attending the CrossFit games and stuff like that. So they were the my students suddenly. Little Daniel from Denmark came to teach them something, and I think that's the beauty of the material as well, and the way you steered me, because the material spoke for itself. That was the firm part, because the material had a way of taking point in the individual and developing the individual, and but it was not with a fixed ending. It was not with a this is how you should do it, or this is exactly the way to do it. This is more like something to experiment with and develop on your own, to something of your own, by following this path and then breaking off the path at some point.
Hmm.
And so I think it's far away, but I think I remember you saying, because I was all like, oh, what do I say? How do I teach it? What do you want me to do here? And you were a lot of like, yeah, let's just go through these progressions with them and we'll see what happens. I remember it like that. So very
Hmm.
open. And I think that's been the context ever since. On the other seminars we taught together. I remember clinging on to the progressions for a long time before suddenly in Australia uh, I dared to break free of the prescription, so to say, and then try to play with it in an individual context. So I think
Hmm.
that's one. That's definitely one of them. That's the set frame and the set of doors, and then letting me open it and see what happens without. That's a big part of it. Without telling me that it was anything. It was neither. It was neither extremely good, it was neither extremely bad. That was not the focus. The focus was to learn from it and to take that into the next level.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's a major point of steering me right,
Mhm.
at least in accordance to how I respond to teaching. So
Mhm.
um, yeah, and I think the other part was where you steered me wrong. Was that the word?
Mhm.
Yeah. Mm. Uh, hmm. Yeah, steered me wrong. I think yeah, that's a much harder thing to answer.
Well, let's reframe
uh,
it. Let's reframe it. The question can be looked at like this. Instead of how I steered you wrong, it's kind of a trick question. But
mhm,
instead of how I steered you wrong is what has changed in your thinking that has allowed you to become more independent in the way that you think about movement, approach movement, something that is, although potentially influenced by our time together, now original to you, that is yours.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. Let me think. I think it's probably bound by the container, if I have to say that, like the container of the material. In order to really develop yourself and become independent, as you said, I think one has to ditch the container at some point. And I remember as I was being sad about, I've had moments also in studying where I was like, oh fuck, man, freestyle doesn't fit this. Fuck
Mhm.
me. What the fuck? What's
Mhm.
going on here? And I've also had experiences physically while practicing movement where it didn't fit the frame and the container. So I think that is probably one thing that is, yeah. As you reframed the question, it's not about steering wrong. I think it's inevitability to you have to adhere to some container or some direction in the beginning. You have to wear
Mhm.
the shirt. You have to wear it and feel it. You have to feel the fabric. You have to move around. You have to swing in it. You have to tumble around in this shirt. You have to, where are the edges of it? Where's, it's out there. I broke it. I fucking broke my favorite shirt. And I stepped over the bounds of the materials, uh, structural tolerance.
Mhm.
I don't know if I can use that analogy, but that's what
That's
came up. But
yeah, that analogy makes sense to me.
um, yeah, and I think that the moment I realized that it's just one shirt in the wardrobe and many can be worn and they're all woven from the same fabric is where I really stepped into um, independent thinking, if you want to call it that,
Mhm.
and having a broader perspective on things that you could call original. Yeah,
Mhm.
does that make sense?
Mhm. Yeah, 100%, and it makes me so happy to hear. It just yeah, it's something that's very special, and it's something that I think we talked about many times,
Hmm.
and maybe back then it wasn't something that was easy to grasp or understand, but I always told you that things were finite, that this was not enough, that our partnership would only go as far as our individual abilities to become our own selves and then find each other within that evolution. And
Hmm.
that teacher student is not forever.
Hmm.
It's something
Yeah.
that is dynamic in nature, just like
Hmm.
any development. And that there had to be a time where you broke free to become who you are becoming today. And in
Hmm.
order for that to happen, uh, an iteration of our relationship and the way that we were working together had to die. And that's
Hmm.
a little bit what
Yeah.
happened. Furthermore, when it comes to presenting any material, for example, the day that I decided to put freestyle or my thinking in a book, immediately I limited what freestyle could
Yeah.
be. The
Mhm.
day that I chose to teach seminars, movement seminars specifically within the world of CrossFit
Mhm.
and using the lens of gymnastics, which was my lens, I limited myself. Thus, I was always going to be landing short of my potential because of the
Yeah.
container.
Mm.
And I always shared this with you to some degree or in some capacity. And I just remember looking at you and you looking back at me like thinking, what are you talking about? Or or more like because you are a very
Mm.
kind, generous, connected, loyal person. And at times I think it may have come off as me maybe saying, "Hey, our relationship will end," or we, you know,
Mm.
and that maybe being a little saddening. It's kind of like talking
Mhm.
about the potential loss of somebody that you love
Mm.
in a future,
Mhm.
which is inevitable.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, now looking back, uh, I mean, I have very fond memories of our time together. I think about our adventures together all the time.
Me too.
And something that I think about is how much I learned from you. You taught me so much, and not only did
Interesting.
you teach me so much, you made the last couple of years on the road really enjoyable. Like I really enjoyed our time together. That was the best. I
Mm.
loved when we got to meet up at airports and then go to the seminar and do the thing and you developing and then the excitement of reviewing how it went. I
Mhm.
I I even romanticize that time. Meaning
Mhm.
like I think about it as like, oh, a child at Christmas or whatever.
Mhm.
I don't know how do you feel about that time together?
I want to cry of joy just by thinking about it. I really, I have such a powerful connection to that time, together with you. It was really, yeah. I think I also hit it before when we talked about where you steered me right, because it was so eventful and so peaceful of nature, and then still we went into some sort of stressful experience maybe, of practicing our skills, um, and then going all serious into game mode. And then I remember you were always very good to remind me. I think you said something along the lines of, "Yeah, it doesn't matter, Daniel. Yeah, it doesn't
Mhm.
matter, and yet it does matter." It's like, what?
Mhm.
um, yeah. So I have when I think of it, it's been a great time in my life.
Mm.
Really, it's I think it's probably the one of the best periods I've had in terms of uh, both self exploration, business exploration, um, developing competence, character, friendships, relationships with people all around the world. Um, yeah, from the Frank Sinatra in post pre and post game, and all the funny jokes and the airplane rides and the crazy airports. I think it was amazing. Yeah, really.
Mhm.
Still very grateful that you even. I can't believe you really took me on that ride. Like that's incredible. Like I still think of it. That really blows my mind. Like I wrote you an email and basically fanboyed the whole way and asked. I just asked to work with you, and you just said, "Yeah, come along.
Mhm.
let's meet up at the seminar." And then many seminars later, you were gambling. You were not gambling. You were putting your material on the line in the hands of someone else, and letting me play with it freely,
Mhm.
where many I think would be hesitant to even think about doing that. And because I've had after this, I've had teachers who wanted me to say exactly what they said and show it exactly how they did it, in the fear of twisting the material or copyright or whatever. But I still think of it as that's a major thing to me. That's a major thing to me today. It's really incredible that you did that.
Mm,
Open the arms, just say, let's go.
yeah,
Yeah, that was really cool.
that's really cool. That's really
Yeah.
cool. Well, that makes me feel very good and fuzzy inside, which is beautiful. So now that we've gone back and down memory lane a little bit and acknowledge how much we appreciate each other, um,
Mhm,
let's get to today and the work that you're
mhm.
currently doing. What are you currently excited about in your not only your own development and what you're studying, but in things that you're practicing and working on? What are you excited about, and what have you found?
Ooh, ooh. Well, at the moment, if I have to make, uh, yeah. So this is the first thing that is on my mind at the moment. This is the one thing that is really keeping me up at night, and the thing I really love practicing. It's about guiding another person to their own insights, and it's kind of like you taking me in the hand and saying, see this landscape, try to walk in it, try to smell it, feel it, describe it, and try to take someone else in the hand and do the same. I really care about, and I'm very excited about at the moment, to take someone else in the hand and showing them how movement can be a thing that is not only for the sake of our health. Because for me, how I see it being sold right now, it's for getting six shredded abs or huge biceps or a big ass or for staying healthy so you won't die. That's basically how people talk about their practice. And I think that that is probably one of the biggest mistakes we haven't been able to get closer to solving yet as a species, or as a culture, I should say.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is people will try to fit in movement practice as a duty to themselves, and in itself that can help. That is not a bad thing. It can help people get fitter and it can help people come a long way. But I think on the long run, it will create a tremendous amount of emotional and psychological stress to people. And it will also confine it to the smallest box in the world: 3 sets of 10 deadlifts and some cardio and whatever. And yeah, I think it's being portrayed, and I think it's coming from a good place of trying to help people simplify a movement practice, which is, I love that. That is really great.
Hmm.
But the dogma that thinking is nurturing is a limitation in itself. So um, I really love at the moment to experiment with how can I create tasks for people so they can kind of unveil their own practice and how they like to practice with their body. Um, I'm kind of obsessed with it at the moment. So um, yeah, and it started actually through a case of pain in a client or person I had, and I've been exploring it through getting closer to a pain-free life with this person. And then I realized it didn't really work well if I just told them what exercises were good for them. That like it didn't really, maybe it helped in a period of time, but then it would get worse again.
Hmm.
And I thought, well, there's something here that I'm not really getting here about this person, and maybe I should be a little more curious. Maybe I should maybe I should take the student hat on, and yeah, that's what I did. So one of the things I learned was that people will, in a state of pain, for example, or a state of just getting the work done, they will seek for the easy stuff and the thing that works. They want the thing that works now and produces results. And so I asked about what they really would like to get back to on the other side of getting that fix, quote unquote. And that question elicited a lot of question marks in their faces. And a lot of them had to think for a long time before they ended up saying something like, yeah, I want to play with my grandson. I want to be able to drive for 2 hours without getting pain, or I want to feel like I am not falling apart in the age of 45. And all those presentations of wishes and wantings led to more questions. So it was like, so what would it feel like to not fall apart? Is that strength? Is it, and what would that strength be? And through which movement? What movement would you like to practice? Um, and I think that really opened some doors, which was, man, I've been pulling my hair out in terms of how to, like, how do I show this door? Like, how can I paint the door and show, and here's the door, try it. That's been a lot of on my mind.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That is so beautiful. I really appreciate that perspective, and it's nice to hear you speak of it in a way where you have arrived at that conclusion. And although it's a conclusion that many have arrived at before, for many reasons, people haven't dared to pursue because going and venturing off the path that is supposedly
Hmm.
set for you, the
Hmm.
prescription, the way, can
Hmm.
be pretty scary. And for many, has potentially led to um, worse outcomes at times. But it seems like you are acquiring the tools to help you navigate the path least traveled,
Hmm.
at the same time the path that must be traveled for the individual to find exactly what they're seeking. And
Hmm.
that is very courageous. I think it's very special, because it also puts you in a position where there's a lot of unknowns in front of you. There's a lot of stuff that is out of your control,
Hmm.
and it requires you to put your patient, your client, the person you're working with, in the driver's seat, and you to become the passenger.
Yep.
It can be a little scary when somebody else is driving. Um,
Yep.
yeah, you said you were pulling your hair out, but I think you meant you were pulling your hair out because you're thinking about, okay, how can I do this more? How can I explore this more?
Oh
I
yes,
think
for
that's
sure.
right. That's what you were
Yes.
alluding to.
Yes.
Yeah. What are some tools or truths that you have found that work? What is something that you've noticed? Okay, I did it with this person. I can replicate it and do it with the next person.
Yeah. So one is, um, I think the first one is creating an overview. Um, so an overview could be where the person is at right now, which would be for let's say it's someone who is in the gym 2 times a week, or someone in pain. It's an overview of where they are and what is kind of nagging, what's going on, what's the general resistance they're experiencing, what's ground zero, so to speak. And so that involves kind of creating a, it's basically me understanding, trying to understand, I should say, where they are. So what does the pain limit you from doing, for example?
Hmm.
And why is this a problem for you? And also, if it's, I've had people say it's that I'm bored, I'm just practicing to not fall apart. Or even someone who says, I'm not practicing anymore, even though I did once, and I'm not feeling great. Um, so I think that has been the first step to establish that through questions, simple questions like asking to the specific experience of being them right now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's one. And that is I'm saying it in a simplified manner right now. It sounds very easy. It's not easy.
Mhm.
I'm still let me rephrase it. It's a challenge to understand someone else's perspective because I can't be in their shoes. Like literally I can't be there. But I can try to get closer with conversation and experimentations with their physical capacities, stuff like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, I think that's the first stepping stone. I think also in terms of what we talked about before, this is where we fail many times, and this is where I have failed many times, and still I'm failing.
Mhm.
Um, this is why I call it challenging, because this is where all the I've had many cases, for example, where I would think that I knew, and then suddenly, after trying to meet the the person where they are, it completely fell apart, like almost immediately after beginning, because the depth was not there. In my journal, I describe it as depth. How much depth can I reach with this person in terms of understanding? And a general picture that has been showing itself is the less depth I have, the more the result of the process would be more by chance. So it could go a lot of ways from there. Whereas if it was a very depthful relationship, it would be way more certain that the person, first of all, was way more engaged and myself was more engaged too. So it
Mhm.
kind of, they kind of followed hand in hand.
Mhm. Yeah. It
Yeah.
sounds to me like you are arriving at a point as a practitioner, somebody who is a coach, leading people in the direction of achieving their goals or whatever outcomes they seek, is that you're not an outcome based practitioner, nor are
Hmm.
you necessarily a process based practitioner. You're becoming a relationship based practitioner. And
Hmm.
it seems like the more you lean into becoming a relationship based practitioner, the more the process based practice unfolds on its own and thus
Hmm.
produces a byproduct, and that byproduct of the process being the results. And those
Hmm.
results maybe being one, the ones that they were seeking, which is like, I
Hmm.
want to be stronger. I
Hmm.
want to be whatever. I want to play with my kids for a long time,
Hmm.
or I want to be able to ride my bike and not be in pain.
Yes.
But furthermore, the byproduct and results could be those of um, meeting needs that uh, the person didn't even know they had,
Hmm.
and that being
Yes.
even more impactful. Is that true when I say that? Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, I definitely think it does. I mean, it's hidden for them. I think we had this conversation a lot of times, which was, um, you can't, or that's a strong word, but selling this talk that we're having right now is incredibly challenging because it involves so much. You have to have walked on your feet and you have to have some experience walking on your feet and learning from it in order to grasp some of the concepts that we're throwing back and forth here. And it's right now, if you open Instagram, it's basically that's not what you're seeing. It's Instagram or any workout page or uh, sales point, marketing point here is not. That's the first thing they will ask. It's what problem are you trying to solve, or what do people want that you can provide, and how can you show that in the easiest way possible?
Hmm.
Selfie of the apps, and here's my program, stuff like that. And I think that is the easiest way to, like, that's very tangible. Oh, I can buy a six pack like this. Boom. Now I'm doing the program. I'm getting the six pack, which of course can work for some, but
Mhm.
I think in terms of the relationships we're trying to develop here, the essence is that it's hidden from the person itself. They don't know necessarily what the process could be like, and they don't know how the relationship with themselves and their practice and process could be. And that's, so I totally agree with you. That is definitely the one of the main insights. It's not in the it's not in the plain view.
Mhm.
You have to have some experience to unfold it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because let's say you're going to live off of being a physical therapist, a coach, a trainer for the rest of your life. It's kind of like you're going to need to have clients,
Yep.
and right. And but if you did an excellent job, if you met your potential, nobody would ever need you.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah, how do you live with that?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a pretty well. That's a pretty good description of it. That would be the end consequence. Total
Hmm.
autonomy
Hmm.
in a lot of people. This is, I think this is what I have felt up until now that excites me the most. And even if I came to the conclusion one day that, oh, there's no need for me, I think the skills and the competence I've developed would be able to unfold in another scenario. So I live quite peacefully with that, actually.
Hmm.
And yeah, I find such a joy and excitement in trying to develop these relationships and asking the questions and digging deeper and trying to unfold with the person rather than telling the person what to do and when, basically, like a nanny or
Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, somebody who's
Yeah.
kind of a caretaker,
Caretaker,
caregiver.
yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I hear
Yeah.
that. Yeah, shifting gears into school. I want to ask
Hmm.
you, and I know that you go to school and in Denmark, so it's in Danish, but I want to hear what are a few words or a word that you feel repeats itself over and over and over again, or a sentence or something that's said in your current schooling that you feel like, oh, this comes up all the time.
In so at in the teachings or
Yeah.
in my own head?
No, in the teachings, and then maybe we can go
In the
into your own
teaching.
head. But in the teachings.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, I think one is it's complicated. That's one
Mm,
sentence. And another one is you'll have to practice to know.
hmm.
And another one is um, listen and read carefully. I think that's some sentences that come up a lot. And then of course a lot of repeated in terms of, yeah, what do you think this does after I've asked the question? That is,
Hmm.
what does this do? So
Hmm.
there's a lot of interaction going on there.
Mm. And what is one subject that you're currently studying that you're excited about?
Ooh, okay, so it hasn't really unfolded completely now, but we've had a little bit, and it's neuroanatomy. That is really interesting. And the brain's ability to adapt to damage and the way it adapts is completely dependent on the person's willingness to adapt. That blew me away, I have to say.
Hmm.
That is very
Hmm.
interesting. We're going to have way more about it, and we've only dipped our toes in the subject. We're going to have
Hmm.
more classes about it. Um, but that is really interesting to me. And this unfolds into the alley of pathology with the brain, for example, with
Hmm.
Parkinson's, how they can ride a bike, but they can't walk. oh, but you paint stairs on the floor and they can suddenly walk. Or
Mhm.
you make a laser on the shoe, which is creates a line like there is a staircase, and they can walk. Like that is incredible to me.
Mhm.
And we've been talking about people who have like a blood clot in their brain and how they've lost motor function. They have a hard time crawling, and they've been able to do everything.
Mm.
And so there's been conducted some studies on this is questionnaire studies. So the patient is given a questionnaire, and they're making an assessment of um, their mental state in terms of their thinking and belief system, basically. So they found that like there's a tendency here, and the tendency is if you are optimistic and you're willing to practice and you have a good relationship to the teacher or the therapist that helps you, you will be able to regain function as before, even though the tissue up here is dead. Like this will happen. And on the other hand, if you're not willing, if you don't believe it can get better, if you stick to your beliefs that it's all shit and nothing will go right and whatever, the chances of your regaining motor function drops dramatically to almost nothing. Like you're going to stay the same. That completely blew me away. That's so interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's so
so
interesting, and
interesting.
it's so interesting that you're saying this, yet if I go to a doctor here,
Hmm.
a general
Hmm.
practitioner, for the most
Hmm.
part, they would never acknowledge that to be a truth.
Exactly. Yeah, that's even blows me more away.
Yeah, it actually pisses me off
Yeah, I can understand.
because it really does limit one's belief, and I think this is where mind over matter is a huge thing, and it's having this uh, almost blind faith that it's
Hmm.
possible.
Hmm.
And yeah, as I hear you say this, I actually feel very hopeful because I've had a couple of physical things over the last couple of years that have been slightly crippling, and they're all
Hmm.
due to stress and anxiety and just circumstances of my life currently.
Hmm.
And I've had to work very hard to overcome some of those, and it all comes down to a limiting belief.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I believe, and I felt this as you were sharing this, is that I was fully bought into how you were sharing this message. And the
Hmm.
reason is because one, you have enough evidence to substantiate the way that you're thinking, but two, you really like this idea. This
Hmm.
idea is really compelling to you.
Yep.
And in addition to that, you're somebody who, when you're compelled to or do you feel attracted to something, the way that you share it is in a way that produces redundantly speaking, a shared experience.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know, you and I have
Yes.
talked about the universe many times and about
Yeah.
astronomy and
Yes.
how, we remember we were
Hmm.
in London and you talked about two stars colliding
Yeah.
and spinning upon each other and accelerating to the
Yes.
point of crashing and producing a black hole. Uh, and we're both like, "Ah, this is so interesting," right?
Yeah. So
And then
cool.
people around us are like, you two are nuts."
Yeah. Exactly.
But what I'm trying to get to is that the thing I hear is that there is a way of doing things that is not about one size fits all, but about
Hmm.
one's own unique expression of moving towards getting a need met or producing a result that one seeks that is enhanced or it grows faster, more effectively, more efficiently when done in a shared fashion, especially with a guide that maybe wears the hat of physical therapist,
Hmm.
movement practitioner, coach,
Hmm.
and how much that is needed these days.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Hmm.
Definitely. Yeah,
And I
and I
don't know
think
what
also.
yeah,
Oh,
does
sorry.
that
Go
resonate with you?
go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Say
Okay,
what you
okay.
were gonna say.
Yeah, definitely needed. I think also needed from a cultural perspective in terms of our development together. Also, it's craved, I think. It's craved from people. I think we're at a point right now where technology is so forward and on the forefront of everything that we're just being pulled away by it. And I love technology. I must say, I really love it. I love what we can do, and I'm baffled by it every day that we can have this conversation here, for example, and record it.
Mhm.
It seems though that right now some of the very more simple things, more basic, or should I say, um, habitual maybe, uh, between human beings, is lost in the race that we're getting caught up in. And I don't mean the race of career, for example. I mean the race of the evolution of where we're going, where everyone is going with startling speed at the moment. Uh, I think it's craved because we are getting more and more distance from each other. That is in a communicative manner. That is in a relational manner. It's in an emotional manner. It's in a physical manner, and it's not to blame anything that I'm saying this. It's simply to state that it's craved that we have these more deep interactions and I should say, developing conversations with each other. I really, and that is not to say that it has to come through a physical practice, even though that is an essential part, if you ask me. But I do think this concept of being with another human being and present with each other, that is fading away, and that has consequences. And that is why I'm saying that it's being craved from in every individual person, I think. And I think
Mhm.
we're seeing this. I've had people walk up to me in the grocery store, people I don't know, who are looking me straight in the eyes without I've never spoken to them before, and they look at me and they say, "Oh, you seem like a nice guy that wants to listen. Let me tell you, blah 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 blah." And here comes a life story, or it could be from a hello or a nodding with the head, and it's like suddenly, it's really sticking to me because it's like it's so needed. Um, yeah, and I think that's what I mean when I say it's craved. It's almost at the front right now where it's almost bubbling over. We've done so much at the moment to try to avoid disease by avoiding each other. We've tried to do so much to treat each other better by avoiding each other physically, not touching each other, and trying to be more respectful. We've been trying to speak better and speak correctly and speak in a manner that suits everyone at the same time, which has then also created more distance to each other because now we're suddenly not able to say anything that is in a context where someone can understand and hear and relate to. And that is not to say that all the movement that has been here, which is in terms of the Me Too campaign, for example, that is not a bad thing. I'm just speaking about the long term consequences of what we've been experiencing. And people are now lying at the end of the day with their iPhone and at the start of the day and at the during the day and and that is also an evolution we have to transcend, I think. So that's what I mean when I say it's craved from person to
Mhm.
person.
Mhm. Mhm. Agree. I mean, I crave it deeply, and it's one of the reasons I picked up this podcast again is to be able to
Hmm.
connect with people. And I'll tell you something that has happened to me today with you here that hasn't happened to me ever before on the podcast. And it's for the first time in recording this podcast and however many years I've done it and whatever episodes I've recorded, where I stopped trying to one get ahead of the conversation in
Ooh,
order to guide the
interesting.
conversation in a meaningful way, and
Hmm.
two, I was no longer concerned about what anybody who was listening would think about you or myself. I was
Mm,
fully here, and those moments are the ones that are the most fulfilling, the most impactful, the best ones. And one of the reasons this is happening in this conversation clearly is because we know each other, we have rapport,
mhm,
and there's a level of safety between us. I mean,
mhm.
yeah, we've experienced a lot together, and I'm just
Yes.
thankful that I'm getting to live this today with you.
Mm,
And I am also very grateful to know that you're out there doing the work that you're doing. And I'll give you an example of one of the times that I felt this, and I've shared this on many podcasts before, and I've shared this with you, so you'll hear it again, but some listeners
mhm.
may hear it for the
Yeah.
first time. And it was something that happened a day before I met you in Austria, and it happened to me in Berlin, in Germany, when I met Ido Portal. I had lunch with him, and the day that I met Ido Portal, it was very funny actually when we met. At first, it was kind of like the meeting of the minds. I don't know why it felt like that, because I had this inferiority complex compared to him. I thought he was like this like movement god or whatever.
Mhm,
Regardless, I really respected him, and I still respect him today, and I think his work is very important,
mhm,
extremely important actually.
mm.
And I just remember the first 5 minutes that we spent together. We kind of spent 5 minutes like kissing each other's ass.
Yeah.
I don't know why it was like that. It was just like we were trying to compliment each other, so we both felt comfortable.
Yeah.
But anyways, we had lunch. It was nice. We had a good conversation. And when I left that meeting with him, I thought to myself, I can finally quit. I can
Mm,
finally stop being this person I've been trying to be, which is this movement teacher, this movement expert, because there's somebody in the world who cares about it more than I do.
mm,
Yeah, I was able to
mhm.
kind of let go.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I became more of myself than I had ever been. And that's very freeing. It didn't take away from the work that I was doing. It just gave me the sense that, oh, wow, I'm not alone. Furthermore, there are people in the lane that I'm currently trying to navigate that have more control, awareness, dedication than I do. And that
Mhm,
is comforting.
mhm,
Furthermore, it's not only comforting, it allows me to triple down on the things that I really care about.
mhm.
Right.
That makes
And
sense.
yeah, and I kind of forget right now why I'm telling you this exactly, but one of the things that I'm picking up on when listening to you and hearing what you're saying is that I'm so glad that you're out there, because it allows me to once again
Mm,
rest easy knowing that I'm not alone, we're not alone,
mhm,
and I can further deepen the knowledge or practice that I seek to explore and celebrate the practice and journey that you're on. I
mhm.
think that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
that's very beautiful. I
mm,
like that.
it's cool. It's cool. Yeah, Daniel, this is so awesome, and I feel like we could go for many more hours.
Mhm.
Is there anything that you, as we kind of gently bring this to an end, and I don't know if this will be 2 minutes closing or 20 minutes of closing, but uh, is there anything that you want the world to know about yourself?
Hmm. Mm. I think I think I probably came from the most normal set of circumstances I could come from, and I still managed to change directions and learn many different things. multiple times in my 32-year-old life now. Um, so whatever it is that, if people are listening and thinking, "Oh, he's privileged," or he is he's incredible, or he has something I don't, then that is just another fiction. It's another belief system that is holding one back. So if there's one thing, it is that everyone has access to this, to development. If we have to put a word on it, to experiencing the way of living in a more fulfilled manner, in a more developed version of living. Everyone can do that. I think it's available. So I think, yeah, I think that could be one thing to know about me. That is, it's this all came from, I think I said this to your talk once. This all came from showing up. Like that was the initial essence of my interactions and my learnings with you. That was the golden nugget. If you had to
Mm-hmm.
put it in something, it was to show up and being consistent with it. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's one of, yeah, I think that's a thing I can attest to. That will definitely produce, yeah, so yes, okay, so being consistent and showing up. And when I say show up, I mean it could be waking up in the morning, and it could be going to your job, it could be physical practice, it could be the conversation with a friend. There is a clear choice every time, and it all can develop yourself, and it can all be magical. It's all right there in front of us. Yeah, so, and that's what I mean by being consistent and showing up. It's you can extract from everything all the time,
Mm-hmm.
even if you sit quietly in a room with yourself in your own company,
Mm-hmm.
or if you observe yourself when you go for a walk, or and feel the wind in your face, and frustration starts to come up because it's raining and it's cold, and yeah, so yeah, being showing up and being consistent, trying to be, instead of hiding,
Mm-hmm.
or I should say capturing yourself in a too small of a container.
Mm.
Can I say that?
Mm-hmm. 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
you
was a
can
little
definitely
vague,
say that.
but yeah.
No, it's philosophical, it's deep, it's beautiful
Hmm.
when you allow yourself to actually listen, not to the words, but to the sentiment that it produces.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. To finish, just for fun, a superficial question, which doesn't necessarily mean it's superficial, but it's more just for fun.
Hmm.
Uh, what has been some brain candy that you've been consuming lately? Any shows, any books, any podcasts, any Instagram accounts that you're following?
Oh, brain candy.
Video
Oh,
games that you've been playing?
there's a lot. So,
Give me three. Give me
been
one.
okay. So prioritized, or just top three,
However
or
you
just
want. Top
three?
three. Top three. Just three, just for fun.
Okay, so brain candy at the moment has been the lore about the Marvel universe, and the order of which to watch the Marvel movies. That has been consuming me. That has been one, and furthermore, in reading the lore about it, I get so excited because I imagine that I am these superheroes. I imagine that I'm Tony Stark, so I can almost not stop again. I'm listening to the music. I'm shouting out the phrases from the movies loud, and yeah, that's definitely the first one. Um, the second one has been Formula One. uh, following. Lewis Hamilton and George Russell and Max Verstappen and all these crazy athletes who are driving incredibly fast cars. And kind of, I've been pulled into the mechanics of the car a little bit. So I'm trying to follow the structure, and I'm zooming in on the picture of the cars on my phone to see, they made that change. I wonder what that is. And ooh, it's not bouncing so more in the races now. It's going faster, and yeah. So I'm following that on Instagram and watching the races. And finally, the third brain candy has been to juggle a football. Um, so seeing how many I can do.
Yeah, what are you at?
47.
40, 47, 47?
Yeah, 47.
Nice.
Yeah.
And is it feet only or feet, knees, head, shoulders?
Feet, yeah, everything is allowed except I can't punch it with my hands. So I can use the shoulders, the torso, the knees, the head, and
Hmm.
both feet. Yeah,
Okay. And
for
do you
now.
start with the ball on the ground, or do you hold it in your hands first?
On the ground.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So,
Nice.
yeah.
Very cool. Daniel,
Hmm.
thank you for sharing those fun little treats.
Of
It makes
course.
me feel like I know a different side of you. I think a lot of times in conversation like this, especially when we get kind of philosophical,
Hmm.
uh, it 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 can get lost on people that there is also very um, superficial or fun things that one
Hmm.
does that is equally as
Hmm.
important and meaningful.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, enjoying
I
Marvel
agree.
movies and wondering how
Yeah.
they should be consumed, or
Yeah.
yeah, following a sport and being a fan of
Hmm.
that, or trying to learn a new skill, and maybe it's a skill that actually has no application other than just maybe foot eye coordination,
Hmm.
specifically with a football or soccer ball or
Hmm.
whatever you want to call it.
Exactly.
um, it's cool.
It's very cool. That was a nice question. I loved it.
Yeah. Daniel-san, as I like to call you.
Hmm. Hmm.
You're a wonderful person, a wonderful friend. I really appreciate you. I love that you took the time to talk to me today and that you did it at the end of your long ass day. And I hope that the people listening could feel and sense what I see in you, and that, if anything, that this conversation brought them a sense of peace and joy and hope and wonder and uh,
Hmm.
yeah, whatever else is a meaningful feeling for them. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, my friend. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Part two, that was it. All right. Bye bye, everybody. We'll see you next time.
See ya.